I am Larry Hetcher. This is Psych 302, Computer Applications and Data Analysis. And in this video, we're going to look at part 2 of Jamovi Exercise 120.01, ANOVA with one within factor, input through interpretation. This is part 2 of a 2-part exercise. What does the red font box say? This exercise is divided into 2 parts. Now, last week, you completed part 1, which involved downloading a data set and performing statistical analyses. This week, you will complete part 2, which involves completing a multiple choice quiz and uploading your Jamovi data set. Let's refresh our memory on what we did last week. We analyzed data from a fictitious study that investigated the relationship between background sound and minutes of sleep. You conducted an investigation with 14 individuals who suffer from insomnia and inability to sleep. You wanted to find out, is it possible that if we put a sound generator, a sound screen in their room, making some kind of calming noise all night long, it'll increase the minutes of sleep that they get? So you conducted an investigation with 14 individuals suffering from insomnia. The investigation lasted 90 days, and a given participant by the end had been exposed to all 3 treatment conditions. For one 30-day period, the individual slept during the night with the sound screen in their room set to fan. It made the sound of a whirring fan all night long. Over the course of 30 days, what was the minutes of sleep that they got on in a typical night on average? During a different 30-day period, the same participant spent 30 days trying to sleep in a room in which the sound screen had been set to making the sound of a babbling brook. What was the average minutes of sleep that these individuals got when they had the babbling brook sound in their room? And then finally, as a control condition, same participants spent a 30-day period sleeping with the sound screen turned off, not making any noise at all. We'll refer to this as the none condition. So ultimately, you wanted to find out, is it true that having a sound screen on has any kind of overall effect on the average minutes of sleep they get? And furthermore, which of these sounds had the most positive effect? Did they get the most sleep when it was set to fan? Maybe they got the most sleep when it was set to none. Those are among the things that you're going to determine by the end of your analyses. So last week, you analyzed this data set. We see participant 1 got 200 minutes of sleep on average in the none condition, 270 in the fan condition, 310 in the brook condition. The results for the other participants can be interpreted in the same way. And on page 3 of the exercise handout, we have this box that says, begin work on task 1, performing the analysis. You don't need to upload anything or complete your quiz yet. We knew that you were going to do that this week. It's this week you're going to do task 2 and task 3. So last week you followed these instructions, you performed the analysis, and if you performed your analysis correctly, your results should have matched these preview results that I provide on page 4 of your exercise handout. Before you start answering questions, multiple choice questions, and uploading your data set, make sure that your results matched my results. Make sure, for example, the average number of minutes of sleep that they got in the none condition was 307.14. The average in the fan condition was 337.86, and so forth. Make sure that the results you got from your repeated measures ANOVA, which is within subjects ANOVA, matches mine. Did you get the same statistics I show here? Make sure that your post hoc tests match my post hoc test. Here's a preview of what your post hoc test should look like. So that was all last week. We now come to this week. I'm on page 5. Page 5, and we're going to focus on this second red font box because it's relevant to this week. Begin exercise part 2. You'll begin work on part 2 1 week after part 1 had been assigned. Part 2 requires that you complete task 2, taking the multiple choice quiz, and task 3, uploading your Jamovi file in Canvas assignment. So what is task 2 all about? Still on page 5 toward the bottom. Task 2, taking the multiple choice quiz. At the same time I assign this exercise, I'll also publish a related multiple choice quiz in Canvas. This section provides a study guide. You should go ahead and answer the questions dealing with the test of statistical significance, regardless of whether the assumptions underlying the test have been satisfied. As you know from last week, there's a number of statistical assumptions that must be satisfied for your results to be correct results. But since this is an exercise, I want you to go ahead and interpret results of statistical significance regardless of whether those assumptions had been satisfied or not. I'm going to give you just a sample of the kinds of questions that are on the study guide, and therefore the kinds of questions you need to be able to answer on your multiple choice quiz. On page 6, about halfway down page 6, we have item 2. According to the table headed Estimated Marginal Mean Sound, created by Jamovi, what was the mean score on minutes of sleep displayed by the none condition? What was the mean for the fan condition? What was the mean for the Burt condition? Hint, this issue was discussed in the section of the general trend of the results in Lecture Notes, Chapter 120. Now, this is a reminder that as you work on this exercise, getting ready for multiple choice quiz, you will need to have the Jamovi results that you created last week when you did the analysis. And you also need to have handy the lecture notes relevant to this exercise. The lecture notes were the lecture notes headed Lecture Notes, Chapter 120, ANOVA with 1 within subjects factor. You should have that handy as you look over this study guide. You should have it handy as you're taking the multiple choice quiz. As you know, my multiple choice quizzes are open book, open note. What other kinds of questions might pop up on the multiple choice quiz? Let's go to page 7 of the exercise handout. According to your ANOVA summary table, what was the obtained value for partial eta squared? Assume we use the criteria where partial eta squared greater than 0.01 represents, eta squared less than 0.01 represents less than a small effect. Greater than or equal to 0.01 represents a small effect. Greater than or equal to 0.6 represents medium effect. Greater than or equal to 0.14 represents a large effect. Given these criteria, how would you interpret the size of partial eta squared statistic that you obtained in this analysis? You'll look at your output, and you'll also bear in mind those lecture notes, chapter 120, and look at the examples I provide there. Here's another example of a question you should be prepared to deal with. Question 8b on the study guide. Question might present several different examples of the ways that one might report results from the omnibus significance test and the omnibus index of effect size. One of these examples would be correct and the other would be incorrect. With such a question, you should be able to identify the one example that's incorrect APA style and is also correctly reports the statistics that actually appeared in the Jamovi results for the analysis. These concepts were covered in chapter 120 in the sections headed, and then I list the names of the various sections in your lecture notes that goes over this information. So as you prepare for the multiple choice quiz, have those lecture notes handy. Once you have taken your multiple choice quiz, you come to task 3, uploading your Jamovi file and Canvas assignments. You'll upload the Jamovi file you've just created in Canvas assignments. It's a good idea to complete the multiple choice quiz described above before you upload the Jamovi file. That's because sometimes items on the multiple choice quiz will convince you that there's something wrong with your Jamovi results. And our final red font box note. End of assignment for the second meeting. Be sure to complete multiple choice quiz and upload your Jamovi file, the one that you created last week, by the deadline indicated in the course syllabus. And what exercise have we been looking at today? Let's scroll up and make sure we're looking at the right one. This has been a summary of what you need to do in completing part 2 of Jamovi Exercise 120.01, ANOVA with one within factor, input through interpretation.